So let us start the continuation of autoacquired prostaglandins. Then we are going to discuss about leukotrienes. Then we are going to discuss about angiotensin. So these all are the autoacquired. In this prostaglandin, thromboxane, leukotrienes are fatty acid derived autoacquired, whereas angiotensin is a polypeptide autoacquired. So in previous class, we already discussed about the synthesis pathway of the prostaglandin. So in this class, we are going to discuss the synthesis, continuation of synthesis. So there should not be repetition. So let us start the prostaglandin. In synthesis process, we already discussed about the enzyme phospholipase A2. So phospholipase A2 is a rate limiting enzyme, and therefore it converts the membrane phospholipid to arachidonic acid. So arachidonic acid is 20 carbon containing unsaturated fatty acid, and therefore we have to call also it the eicosanoids, because eicosanoid means 20 carbon containing unsaturated fatty acid. So in first phase, under the presence of enzyme cyclooxygenase 1 and 2, PGG2 get formed, and from there PGH2 get formed. And thereafter, in presence of different synthase enzyme, the prostaglandin like D2, E2, F2 alpha, I2, thromboxane A2 were formed. So this is important, prostaglandin and thromboxane. So that we already discussed. We also discuss about the drug or the compound which inhibit the enzyme cyclooxygenase, and we also discussed the drug which inhibit the enzyme phospholipase A2, and therefore because of the inhibition of rate limiting enzyme phospholipase A2, arachidonic acid has not been formed. So glucocorticoids, the drug under the steroid that we are calling it glucocorticoid, that stimulate the physiological function to synthesize lipoprotein, and this lipoprotein inhibit the rate limiting enzyme, and therefore the membrane phospholipid has not been converted into arachidonic acid, and therefore it inhibits the pathway of synthesis of prostaglandin, thromboxane. Glucocorticoid, the drug under steroid drug, that is glucocorticoid, not only inhibit the enzyme phospholipase A2 but also inhibit the enzyme cyclooxygenase. both 1 and 2, as well as the traditional non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug that we know that most of the painkiller, antipyretic, analgesic belongs to this NSAID. T NSAID. Means traditional, N means non steroidal, A anti, I inflammatory, D drugs. So traditional or simply non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug like aspirin, like paracetamol, and so many other drugs that are going to inhibit the enzyme cyclooxygenase, as well as glucocorticoid is also going to inhibit this cyclooxygenase enzyme. So once cyclooxygenase enzyme get inhibited, therefore the synthesis of prostaglandin as well as the thromboxane will not be occur. That means ki you can say thromboxane A2 as well as different type of prostaglandin will not be formed. So these two together you may call it prostanoid. So prostanoid which include different type of prostaglandin like PGI2, PGD2, PG E2, PGF2 alpha along with thromboxane A2 are called prostanoid. In this few more are also included, but mainly prostanoid include prostaglandin and thromboxane. And the drug coming under non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug are used for the therapy of analgesic, antipyretic, anti-inflammatory. Why? That means कि these prostanoid like prostaglandin and thromboxane are going to produce the physiological function like inflammation, pyrexia means fever, algesia means pain. That means कि the prostanoid are going to produce the physiological function like inflammation, like fever, like algesia. So therefore, when these agent will not be formed because of inhibition of enzyme cyclooxygenase, so therefore this is going to check the inflammation, check the fever, and check the algesia. So these all are the drug coming under the group non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. However, the glucocorticoid specifically like under this the example like betamethasone, dexamethasone. So these drugs are mainly concerned to anti-inflammatory agent. Regarding the other drug that we are going to call coxib, COXIBS. So coxibs are the drug that are specifically going to inhibit the enzyme COX-2, whereas NSAID is going to inhibit both 1 and 2, cyclooxygenase 1 and cyclooxygenase 2, whereas COXIBs are going to inhibit specifically the COX-2 or cyclooxygenase type 2 enzyme. Under this, the COXIB, you can say the group and the drug is celecoxib, CELECOXIB, and rofecoxib, ROFECOXIB. Rofecoxib and celecoxib are the called coxib, and they are going to inhibit the enzyme cyclooxygenase. So this is about the something about the synthesis pathway. Now we have to go through the types of cyclooxygenase that we already discussed. So there are two types of enzyme that are participating to synthesize the prostaglandin and thromboxane are cyclooxygenase 1 and cyclooxygenase 2, and we are going to call it cyclooxygenase enzyme. So here you have to see the arachidonic acid under the presence of COXIB 1 and 2 going to synthesize the first PGG2, and again in presence of same cyclooxygenase going to synthesize PGH2, and in presence of various synthase enzyme like PGI synthase is going to synthesize PGI2. In presence of PGD PGD synthase enzyme, so this is PGD synthase enzyme is going to synthesize the prostaglandin PGD2. PGF synthase is going to synthesize PGF2 alpha. Then thromboxane TXA synthase is going to synthesize thromboxane A2. So PGH2 in presence of various synthase enzyme are going to synthesize prostaglandin and thromboxane. So there are two type, and here I am going to mention very important point is that traditional non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug is going to inhibit the cyclooxygenase, and also you can say aspirin, whereas the COX-2 inhibitor particularly we are going to call COXIB. So this is going to inhibit the COXIB, inhibit the cyclooxygenase 2. Now we have to go through the important point regarding the enzyme COX-1, cyclooxygenase 1 and cyclooxygenase 2. Cyclooxygenase 1 enzyme is constitutive enzyme. So important point is this is constitutive enzyme, and usually this is going to be synthesized by most of the cell of the body, and this is participating in the normal homeostasis. Whereas the another enzyme cyclooxygenase 2, that is indissoluble one. So COX-2 is the indissoluble cyclooxygenase, and it will only get formed when there is inflammatory stimuli occur, and therefore it give rise to COX-2, and therefore this is going to participate in synthesis of prostaglandin and thromboxane. So prostaglandin, that the types are here, and thromboxane A2, that is we are going to call it the product of cyclooxygenase. Here one more important point is that the product that synthesized from arachidonic acid is called eicosanoid. E-I-C-O-E-S-A-N-O-I-D. So eicosanoid are autocoid that get synthesized from arachidonic acid in presence of various enzymes like cyclooxygenase that are going to synthesize thromboxane and prostaglandin, and in presence of another enzyme we call it the lipooxygenase that are going to form the leukotrienes from the same arachidonic acid, and not only that, from that other product are also formed that are also called the eicosanoid. So in case of eicosanoid, it include thromboxane A2, it include different type of prostaglandin, it include leukotrienes, it include many more product. And in this eicosanoid, thromboxane A2 and PG prostaglandin is called prostanoid. So these two are prostanoid. Some more uh, are also product of arachidonic acid through this pathway under the prostanoid, but mainly thromboxane A2 and prostaglandin like I2, D2, F2 alpha, E2. Now we have to go through the receptor of the prostanoid. I mean prostaglandins and thromboxane. And the receptor are about five main of the prostanoid receptor, and all are G protein coupled receptor. That in short we are going to call it GPCR. The receptor name is based upon the type of prostaglandin. I mean, if the prostaglandin in D2, the receptor is DP. P stands for prostaglandin and D stands for type D2. For F2 alpha, the receptor is FP. For PGI2, the receptor is IP. For thromboxane A2, receptor is TP. T for thromboxane and P is prostaglandin. Then PGE2, the receptor is EP. So there are five receptor of the prostanoid like D2, like F2 alpha, I2, thromboxane A2, PGE2 respectively. And here one more interesting point is that the particularly receptor EP receptor is also subdivided into three types or three subgroup: EP1, EP2 and EP3. So amongst all that one prostaglandin, mainly EP receptor get divided into three subgroup. So here is important point regarding this. Now we have to go through the different physiological function of the prostanoid. So the action of prostanoid. So this is very important. Prostaglandin D2, when going to attach with the DP receptor, they stimulated the G protein couple receptor and going to produce the physiological function like vasodilation as well as platelet aggregation inhibition. So other than this, it also relaxes the uterine and GI muscle. So important physiological function of PGD2 is attached with the DP receptor, and therefore it will produces vasodilation, inhibition of platelet aggregation and also the relaxation of the GI and uterine muscle. Here I am going to mention this point that like PGD2, PGI2 and one more E2. Also E2 are possessing. So this is also PG, this is PGI2 and this is PGE2. Almost all these three are possessing the vasodilation and platelet aggregation inhibition. PGD2 and PGI2. This is very important. E2 may vary, but all the three prostaglandin D2, prostaglandin I2, prostaglandin E2 are going to produce vasodilation and inhibition of platelet aggregation. So here this point you have to recall. Now we have to go through another prostaglandin, that is the prostaglandin F2 alpha. So as we mentioned, for F, this is F, and for prostaglandin it is coming P. So receptor is FP receptor. So PGF2 alpha is very important prostaglandin, because this prostaglandin is going to act on the FP receptor present on the corpus luteum and produce luteolysis. So when it get luteolized, it is going to produce the parturition. It helps in the parturition. And also it is acting on the smooth muscle, or it is present on the smooth muscle like uterus, and produce the physiological function on the uterus. So that we have to go through that. So when the prostaglandin F2 alpha is attached with the receptor FP receptor, in case of cattle, if this is going to act on the corpus luteum, this is going to be breakdown in case of cattle. So PGF2 alpha in a species like cattle is going to luteolize the corpus luteum, and therefore because of this reason PGF2 alpha analog, or the drug that are having the we are going to call agonist or analog, that are going to helps in the parturition and stress synchronization. Why? Once the corpus luteum gets luteolized, the animal is going to come in the heat. So as I have mentioned, PGF2 alpha is also going to act on the receptor present on the uterus. So in case of human being, this is going to produce uterine contraction. So PGF2 alpha is going to contract the uterus in case of human being. Now we have to go through the other prostaglandin like prostaglandin I2. Prostaglandin I2 is also called prostacyclin. So you have to recall the another name of PGI2, prostacyclin. So prostacyclin is going to, as I earlier told, PGI2, PGD2, and also PGE2 is going to produce vasodilation and also going to inhibit the platelet aggregation that we already discussed here. So the PGI2 of prostacyclin through IP receptor, that is I for this and P for prostaglandin, through IP receptor, this is going to act on the endothelium of the blood vessel and produces the vasodilation, as well as this is going to produce the platelet aggregation inhibition. Here I am going to mention one more point. If there is vasodilation, so there is going to produce the inflammation. So this is going to participate in the inflammation. And because of the inflammation, it may be responsible for fever, pain. So other than this, another product of the cyclooxygenase pathway is thromboxane A2 that I already mentioned, or again here I am going to mention. The thromboxane A2 is possessing the physiological function just opposite to the PGI2, I mean prostacyclin. So what this action against of the PGI2? PGI2 is going to produce vasodilation. So thromboxane A2 is going to produce the vasoconstriction. PGI2 is going to produce the inhibition of platelet aggregation. So this is going to produce the platelet aggregation. So the action of thromboxane A2 is opposite to the PGI2. So you may ask a question here, why I have not mentioned about the D2 and the E2? Because the mainly function about the vasodilation and inhibition of platelet aggregation is produced by PGI2. Therefore, I am comparing this with the PGI2. Along with this, thromboxane is also participating in bronchoconstriction. So this is very, very important one. Now we have to go through the one more prostaglandin, PGE2. This is very, very important one. PGE2 is participating in the inflammation because it is vasodilation. So if there is vasodilation, more the area get red and that get produce inflammation. Now we have to go through the subtype of its receptor. So the receptor are EP1, EP2, EP3. So here I am going to mention the few physiological functions that are very, very important, and that may you find the questions like the PG, if you are going to consider the receptor EP3. So EP3, when prostaglandin PGE2 is acting on EP3 receptor present on the pregnant uterus of the human being, this is going to produce the contraction, and therefore it is going to help in the parturition. So this is very, very important. If you are going to parturate the animal, you have to use PGE2 analog or agonist. So it will act similar to the PGE2 over the receptor EP3. So in case of pregnant lady, this is going to produce the contraction of the uterus and therefore help in the parturition. Here I am going to mention one more point. For that you have to give the analog or agonist only when the os is open. If os is not open, then you are not going to give this drug. Now we have to go through the other presence of this receptor at other places. This EP3 receptor is also present on parietal cell. So when prostaglandin E2 is going to attach with the EP3 receptor present on the parietal cell, this is going to inhibit the gastric acid secretion. So very, very interesting point is that the gastric acid secretion is going to inhibit a physiological function, and acid secretion is going to be inhibited when prostaglandin E2 is acting on the EP3 receptor present on the parietal cell, and therefore it inhibits the HCl secretion. So when we are using the drug like NSAID, that you know NSAID is going to inhibit the enzyme cyclooxygenase, therefore this is going to inhibit the prostaglandin E2 synthesis, and therefore the acid secretion is not going to be inhibited, and therefore the chances this is going to produce the peptic ulcer. Why? Because NSAID is going to inhibit E2 synthesis, and therefore acid secretion is not going to be inhibited. Therefore the chances the acid is going to act on the mucosa of own GI mucosa and produce the peptic ulcer. So as an analog, PGE2 analog or agonist, we have to use for the therapy of peptic ulcer. So NSAID is going to produce the peptic ulcer. Another place over the GI mucosa, this EP3 receptor is also found. And EP3 receptor, this prostaglandin through EP3 receptor is also going to stimulate the secretion of mucus, and therefore when this get stimulated, it increases the synthesis of mucus. So mucus, as you know, this is a GI tract protective activity. So when the NSAID is to be used, PGE2 is not going to be synthesized, therefore more acid secretion is occur and less mucus secretion occur, and as a resultant this is going to participate in ulcer formation. So therefore for this therapy we are going to use the drug like PGE2 analog or agonist. So therefore it inhibits the acid secretion as well as it increases the mucus secretion. Now we have to go through the other physiological function of PGE2. PGE2 is acting on the receptor EP1, and therefore it is participating in the contraction of smooth muscle of the lungs and GI tract. It is also going to increase the contraction of intestinal. So through EP1 receptor, it is going to contract bronchial and GI mucosa, GI smooth muscle, and through EP3 receptor, this is going to contract the intestinal smooth muscle. Now we have to go through the action of PGE2 on the EP2 receptor. So EP2 receptor is going to relax the bronchial smooth muscle. So bronchodilation occur. It is also going to participate in vasodilation as well as GI smooth muscle relaxation. So this is all about the physiological function of different physiological function of prostanoid through different type of receptor. Now we have to go through the therapeutic use of these prostaglandin analog or agonist. Now we have to go through the prostanoid analog or agonist that we are using as a therapeutic agent. So latanoprost is a PGF2 alpha agonist, and this one is used to treat the glaucoma. So the ophthalmic use of latanoprost is a agonist of PGF2 alpha and used for the therapy of glaucoma. Now go through the more important drugs that are concerned to gastrointestinal tract. So we are going to use EP2 and EP3 agonist, or you can say the PGE2 agonist. The drug is misoprostol. So misoprostol is going to use for suppressing the gastric acid secretion, and therefore this may be used for the therapy of peptic ulcer. So misoprostol is PGE2 analog. So PGE2 analog means that this is their action. I mean the action of misoprostol is similar to prostaglandin E2. So the physiological function of PGE2 is to decrease the hydrochloric acid synthesis and increase the secretion of mucus. Increase the secretion of mucus, and therefore it will protect from the peptic ulcer. So PGE2 is used as a treatment of peptic ulcer, and the drug is misoprostol. Now we have to go through its use on gynecological point and obstetrics point. The same drug misoprostol, other like gamiprost, other like dinoprostone, these all are PGE2 analog. So this misoprostol or gamiprost or dinoprostone is going to induce the labor, and therefore these may be used to induce the labor, and therefore it helps to parturiate the animal, and this is mainly concerned to the human being. So this is going to parturiate the animal. How? As I already mentioned, the PGE2 prostaglandin through EP3 receptor is going to contract the pregnant human uterus. So when and help in the parturition. So when you are using any agonist of PGE2 E2, and that agonist is particularly acting on the EP3 receptor of the uterus, then this is going to contract and help in the labor pain and helps in the parturition. So therefore, the drug like PGE2 analog misoprostol, gemiprost and dinoprostone is used for the induction of labor, but the condition is that os of that patient should be open. So this is very important. Now we have to go through the PGF2 alpha analog or agonist, and the name of the drug is carboprost. So carboprost is PGF2 alpha agonist, and this PGF2 alpha agonist is going to use for two purposes: to induce the labor as well as helps to check the bleeding after parturition. So carboprost is a PGF2 analog, and this is going to induce the labor through luteolysis. Corpus luteum is going to be degenerated, and this is also going to help in the uterine contraction, particularly in human being, PGF2 alpha, and therefore it induces the labor. And as well as this is going to check the postpartum hemorrhage. So carboprost is used for two purposes: to induce the labor by acting on the FP receptor to contract the uterus, and therefore it will induce the parturition. And another one, this is also going to check the hemorrhage, particularly after parturition, and therefore this is called oxytocin drug. So oxytocin drug are the agent that induce the uterus contraction, increase its tonicity, and that leads to labor pain, and also help in the prevention of the postpartum hemorrhage, is called ecbolic or oxytocin. Now we have to go through the other therapeutic use of the prostaglandin analog or agonist like PGI2 analog ipoprostinol. So as you know, this PGI2 is a vasodilator as well as the inhibitor of platelet aggregation. Therefore, because of vasodilation, this is going to reduce the blood pressure. So because of this, ipoprostenol is going to use for the therapy of pulmonary hypertension. And regarding the drug that are going to inhibit the synthesis of prostaglandin, that we already discussed, but again traditional non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, that is non-steroidal one, is going to inhibit the cyclooxygenase, and therefore it inhibits the synthesis of prostaglandin and thromboxane. And another drug that particularly inhibit the cyclooxygenase type 2 that we already mentioned, that is called coxib. The example are celecoxib and rofecoxib. They are going to inhibit the COX2. As we already discussed about this point, thromboxane A2 and I2. Thromboxane A2 and prostaglandin I2 are showing opposite type of function that we already discussed. Now we have to go through the physiological role of the prostanoid that is participating in various physiological function like inflammation, like pain, like fever, like contraction or relaxation of the muscle, like the vasodilation, like platelet aggregation, and also platelet aggregation inhibition. So their action is sometime contraction, sometime relaxation, sometime vasodilation. So therefore, because the action is sometime contracting, sometime relaxation, therefore the action of prostanoid is called yin yang action. This action is called yin yang action. So this is all about the prostaglandin, that is I2, D2, F2 alpha, D2, and also thromboxane A2. Now we have to go through the last one under the eicosanoid, that is the leukotrienes. Now we have to go through the leukotrienes. So leukotrienes is also classified under the fatty acid or lipid derived autocoid from the arachidonic acid. So now we have to go through the synthesis pathway of the leukotrienes. And leukotrienes is the product of lipooxygenase pathway. So what is this lipooxygenase? Is an enzyme. So now we have to go through the synthesis pathway and metabolism pathway of the leukotrienes. So leukotrienes, how they form? Once arachidonic acid gets synthesized from the phospholipid of the membrane under the presence of PLA2, phospholipase A2, this arachidonic acid in presence of one more enzyme 5-LOX, in presence of one protein FLAP. So what is 5-LOX stand for? 5-LOX is 5-lipooxygenase. So lipooxygenase is the enzyme, and this enzyme is get activated by a protein. We are calling it FLAP, F-L-A-P. F for 5, L for lipooxygenase, A for activating, P for protein. So FLAP is a protein which activating the enzyme 5-LOX to get activated and convert the arachidonic acid into the product that we call 5-SHPETE. So what is HPETE? So H for hydro, PE for peroxy. So 5-HPETE is the 5 hydro, P for peroxy, E for ecosa, T for tetra. So 5-hydroperoxy tetraenoic acid is 5-HPETE. So this arachidonic acid in presence of enzyme 5-LOX, that is the 5-lipooxygenase, and that enzyme is get activated by one protein, we are calling it FLAP. So 5-lipooxygenase activating protein is going to helps to activate the LOX enzyme, and therefore HPETE gets synthesized. And this HPETE again in presence of same 5-LOX is get converted into the first product leukotrienes A4. So this one is the leukotrienes. So first leukotrienes is form that we called it leukotrienes A4. So arachidonic acid in presence of 5-LOX is get converted into 5-HPET. Then again presence of same enzyme, it get converted into the leukotrienes A4, and leukotrienes A4 get converted into the leukotrienes B4 is in presence of enzyme leukotrienes A4 hydrolase, and again leukotrienes A4 get converted into leukotrienes C4, leukotrienes D4 and leukotrienes E4 in presence of the different enzyme. But A4 get converted into C4 in presence of enzyme we call leukotriene C4 synthase. So leukotrienes C4, leukotrienes D4 and leukotrienes E4, these all are called cysteine leukotrienes. And these all, I mean C4D4, particularly C4D4 is also called SRSA. S capital, R capital, S capital and A. So these leukotrienes, I mean cysteine leukotrienes, that is cysteine leukotrienes include LTC4, LTD4 and LTE4 are called cysteine leukotrienes, and these all are also called SRSA because they are going A for anaphylaxis. So this cysteine leukotrienes is responsible for anaphylaxis, therefore this is called SRSA, that is the slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis, particularly D4 and C4. That means this is participating in the anaphylaxis. Not only that, interestingly, this is also going to contract the bronchial smooth muscle and participating in some time, this is enhancing the condition of the asthma. So the drug which inhibit the action of this cysteine leukotriene synthesis that are to be used for the therapy of asthma, because cysteine leukotrienes like C4, D4, E4 is participating in anaphylaxis as well as the contraction of bronchial muscle, and therefore it enhances the condition of asthma. Now we have to go through the leukotrienes receptor. So lipooxygenase, so we have discussed about the enzyme lipooxygenase. Now we have to go through the receptor of leukotrienes. So that we already discussed leukotrienes B4 and cysteine leukotrienes. The leukotrienes we have discussed leukotrienes B4 and cysteine leukotrienes. Cysteine leukotrienes are leukotrienes C4, leukotrienes D4, leukotrienes E4. These all are going to call cysteine leukotrienes. So their respective receptor for B4 is the for B4 we are writing for B we are writing first B, and because this is leukotriene, so we are calling it the leukotriene. So leukotrienes B4 receptor is BLT, and this BLT receptor is again subdivided into two types, BLT1 and BLT2. So the subtype of this receptor BLT is BLT1 and BLT2, whereas cysteine leukotrienes, their receptors are, we are going to write for this receptor R, because this is cysteine leukotriene, so the receptor are cis LT. So cis LT is the receptor for the cysteine leukotriene C4, D4, E4 and also F4. And there are again this leukotrienes receptor, cysteine leukotrienes receptor get divided into two subtypes, like the BLT is cysteine leukotrienes 1, cysteine leukotrienes 2 receptor. And as we already discussed, this is about cysteine leukotrienes physiological function is participating in contraction of the bronchial smooth muscle. So therefore is a potent spasmogen. Potent spasm is going to produce, and therefore it is going to enhance the condition of asthma. So drug that are going to act on this receptor as a antagonist of this receptor that are used for the therapy of asthma. Like the drug, in that drug you will find the suffix Lucast. So these Lucast drug are the receptor antagonist. What means cysteine leukotrienes C4, D4, E4 is going to act on the receptor and therefore produces the bronchoconstriction. Okay. So if you are going to give these cysteine leukotrienes receptor antagonist, cysteine leukotrienes receptor antagonist, it will inhibit the attachment of leukotriene C4, D4, E4 on their respective receptor. So once when it is not going to attach with the respective receptor, so therefore no physiological function of bronchoconstriction, and therefore it is used for the therapy of asthma. So Jaferlucast, then Pranlucast, then Montelukast. So all are possessing the suffix Lucast, are cysteine leukotrienes receptor antagonist. Therefore, it inhibits the attachment of cysteine leukotrienes, and therefore it inhibits the physiological functions of cysteine leukotrienes of the bronchoconstriction. Therefore, it is used as a therapy of asthma. Very, very important two drugs like Gilutine and Lycophyllone. These two drugs are enzyme inhibitor. So Gilutine, Zileuton, is enzyme 5-LOX inhibitor. So when this enzyme is not going to participate, then this enzyme is not going to participate in synthesis of leukotrienes. So no leukotrienes. So gelatin is going to inhibit the enzyme 5-LOX. Then therefore this is going to inhibit the synthesis of different type of leukotrienes. So this may be used for the therapy of asthma. Another drug is lycophyllone. What is this lycophyllone? Lycophyllone is also the enzyme inhibitor, but this will inhibit two type of enzyme. This will not only inhibit the 5-LOX, also inhibit the COX. So lycophyllone is the very, very important drug which inhibit the synthesis of prostaglandin by inhibiting the enzyme cyclooxygenase, also inhibiting the synthesis of lipo oxygenase, and therefore no leukotrienes. So this is very, very important. So this is all about the leukotrienes, all about the leukotrienes, all about the prostaglandin, all about the thromboxane. Now we have to go through the another polypeptide autocoad, that is polypeptide autocoad, angiotensin. So we are going to start the discussion of angiotensin, and this is very, very important autocoad. So as I already mentioned, angiotensin is a peptide, or you can say polypeptide autocoad. That means it is made up of protein. And interestingly, angiotensin is participating in physiological function like it will maintain the homeostasis of electrolyte, it will maintain the blood pressure, it will maintain the blood volume. So when there is change in the blood pressure, in change in pressure, blood pressure, change in blood volume, change in electrolyte, particularly sodium chloride, it will going to stimulate the this system to do something. So that we are going to discuss about this one. So as you know, one enzyme we are calling it the renin. So renin is an enzyme. So what is the function of renin that we are going to discuss in detail? So as we know, when there is hypotension, when there is hypovolemia, when there is a low level of sodium in the blood, these all are going to help to release the enzyme renin. I'm not going to discuss here in detail, but these all are going to helps to release the enzyme renin. When there is low blood volume, when there is low sodium level in the blood, when there is low blood pressure. So these all are going to tell the system to release the enzyme renin through different pathway. That means ki the receptor or the cells present in the nephron at different places like macula densa, like renal baroreceptor, like sympathetic nervous system in the neuron. That particularly is the through the beta receptor through the norepinephrine. That we are not going to discuss in much detail, but here I am going to mention few more about this. Also, if there is more release of prostaglandin like E2 and I2 within the blood, so as you know, prostaglandin E2 and I2 are lowering the blood pressure, so they are also going to stimulate to counterbalance the blood pressure by helping to release the renin. So when there is more PGI2, or you can say the to nullify the function of prostaglandin I2 and E2, body is going to stimulate the release of enzyme renin to enhance the blood pressure. So now we have to go through the synthesis pathway of the angiotensin, and thereafter we have to go through the type of the angiotensin. Then we have to discuss about the receptor. So this pathway, the synthesis pathway of renin, is more much also called renin angiotensin aldosterone system. So this, in this pathway, they are going to help in the synthesis pathway of angiotensin. How does angiotensin? So in the regulation of the blood pressure of the human being as well as the animal, this pathway is participating a very big role, or participating a very big role. So this may be the participation of renin enzyme, participation of the hormone like the aldosterone, and also you can say the participation of the autoacquired angiotensin. This angiotensin is also called local hormone. So now we have to go through the synthesis pathway. So when within the kidney, when there is low level of the sodium chloride and water is found, when there is low level of sodium chloride as well as the water in the blood, particularly in the nephron of the kidney will found, this low level is going to, or you can say the when there is low renal perfusion is in the kidney, or you can say particularly the nephron, they are going to have the positive effect over the kidney to release the enzyme renin. So this is very very important. And if there is more renal perfusion, or I mean if more sodium chloride in the there, more water is there, then they are having the negative effect over the kidney through the release of the renin through macula densa and juxtaglomerular cell. So high blood pressure, or you can say high blood renal perfusion is going to inhibit the release of renin. And if there is low pressure, that is the hypotension, if there is low water volume, that is the blood volume, and if there is no low sodium chloride, then these all are going to help to say to the nephron, like the different participation like macula densa, juxtaglomerular cell, baroreceptor, to release the renin enzyme, and therefore renin enzyme is going to be released. This renin enzyme, what will do? The When there is these things are low, liver is going to release one angiotensinogen. This angiotensinogen is a angiotensin 1 precursor. So angiotensinogen is going to be released by the liver, and therefore renin is going to convert the angiotensinogen to angiotensin. So angiotensin is alpha 2 globulin. So this angiotensin is only released by liver when there is low blood pressure, when there is hypotension, when there is hypovolemia, when there is low level of water in the blood, when there is low level of sodium chloride. These all are going to stimulate the release of alpha globulin angiotensin by the liver and also the renin enzyme by the kidney, and therefore it will get converted into the angiotensin 1. Now by the lungs, one another enzyme is going to be released. The name of enzyme is based upon the name of the angiotensin, and therefore it is called angiotensin converting enzyme. So the function of this angiotensin converting enzyme is to convert the angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2 by the enzyme that we called it the angiotensin converting enzyme. And therefore this angiotensin 2 is formed. This angiotensin 2 is going to act on the receptor, that through the main receptor that we call it the angiotensin T1 receptor. So T1, angiotensin 2 is acting on the receptor angiotensin AT1 receptor and going to produces the different physiological function that we are going to see here. What are the physiological function is angiotensin 2 is producing by acting through mainly or primarily through AT1 receptor and going to increase the blood volume, going to increase the blood pressure, going to increase the absorption of sodium chloride, going to release the aldosterone, going to release the another hormone ADH. How? That we are going to discuss. So angiotensin 2 is going to act on the posterior pituitary and stimulate to release one hormone. We are calling it the antidiuretic hormone ADH. So as you know, ADH hormone is going, the name is diuresis, antidiuresis. So diuresis means passing of urine, means ki more water is going to come out from through the urine. So this hormone is going to check the excretion of the water, so water is not going to come out from the body, so it will sustain within the blood, and therefore blood volume is going to not decrease, so this will help to maintain the blood pressure. So this is about the antidiuretic hormone. Now we have to go through the its action on the blood vessel. So when this angiotensin 2 is acting on the blood vessel through the same angiotensin T1 receptor, through the GP, this AT1 receptor is G protein couple receptor. G protein couple receptor. And the protein in this again is same, the GQ. And therefore this is going to produce finally they are going to enhance the intracellular calcium level in the vascular smooth muscle. So angiotensin 2 is acting on the vascular smooth muscle through AT1 receptor. It increases the intracellular calcium level and therefore it contracts and therefore it produces the vasoconstriction, and which will helps to raise the blood pressure. So this is the another action, and this is the main action. This one is the action over the blood vessel is the main action. Now we have to go through the other function of the angiotensin 2 autoacquired. And kidney having adrenal cortex. So adrenal cortex is going to release one hormone, aldosterone hormone. So angiotensin 2 is acting on the adrenal cortex present over the kidney to release the aldosterone hormone, and aldosterone hormone is now going to act on the tubules of the kidney to increase the absorption of sodium chloride. So tubules is going to keep more sodium and sodium chloride, and simultaneously where the sodium level is high, water is coming there. So within the blood vessel, when the more water is there, more sodium is there, so more water is there, so this is going to help in the rising of the blood pressure through aldosterone hormone secretion. This is the another pathway by increasing the sodium chloride reabsorption through the tubule of the kidney. Therefore more sodium in the blood, so more sodium in the blood is indicating more water, so it is going to enhance the blood pressure. Angiotensin through the beta receptor, beta adrenergic receptor, or through the sympathetic pathway, sympathetic nervous system pathway, is going to act either on the heart to increase the heart rate and force of contraction, and going to help in the rising of the blood pressure. So this is in nutshell the mechanism of action as well as the synthesis pathway of the angiotensin 2, mainly the 2. Now we have to go through the angiotensin types. So angiotensin are mainly three types: angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 3. So main or most important is the angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 is autoacquired, is biologically most active, as well as also called angiotensin simply. We have to go through the chemistry. Angiotensin 1 is decapeptide, 2 is octapeptide, and this is mainly. And you will find angiotensin in the blood. This is all about the biosynthesis that we already discussed. Now we have to go through the types of receptor. So that I already discussed about one receptor, angiotensin 1 receptor. So angiotensin receptor are more than two type, but mainly two type: angiotensin T1 receptor and angiotensin T2 receptor. The T1 receptor for the angiotensin 2 is more explored and more studied, because through angiotensin 2 through angiotensin 1 receptor is going to help to raise the blood pressure, blood volume. So that is why this is important. Whereas it is not well established, but under the study, when the angiotensin 2 is going to act through angiotensin 2 receptor, this is going to counterbalance the action of angiotensin 2 action on the angiotensin 1 receptor. Here I am going to mention one few more points that we already discussed. The angiotensin receptor are G protein coupled receptor. This is particularly about the angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2 receptor. The drug like losartan or sartan, you can say, they are going to inhibit the action of angiotensin 2 to act on the receptor angiotensin 1 receptor. So these are losartan or sartan are called angiotensin 1 receptor antagonist. Losartan is called angiotensin 1 receptor antagonist. How I have to explain? This angiotensin 2 is going to attach with the angiotensin 1 receptor present either on the blood vessel or many places, and therefore produces the physiological function. If this is on the blood vascular smooth muscle, this is going to contract. So this sartan, like losartan, valsartan and other sartan, they are going to attach with the this receptor. So angiotensin will not found place to attach with this receptor. Therefore, this is sartans are called angiotensin 1 receptor antagonist. And this is the affinity for this receptor. Losartan affinity for attachment with the angiotensin 1 receptor is about 10,000 fold more than its attachment with the another receptor, that is angiotensin 2 receptor. So this is very, very interesting and important. As I earlier mentioned regarding the blood pressure, angiotensin 2 is going to produce its action mainly through angiotensin 1 receptor. So this is important. And as I also mentioned, through angiotensin 2 receptor, that is counterbalancing the activity produced through AT1 receptor. As the mechanism of action of this one is concerned, particularly vascular smooth muscle is concerned, angiotensin 2 is going to attach with the angiotensin 1 receptor present in the vascular smooth muscle and other places also. Therefore, GQ protein get activated. Therefore, once GQ protein get activated, it convert PIP2 phosphoinositol biphosphate into two component DAG and IP3, and finally this IP3 is get converted into calcium, and therefore calcium intracellular raised in the vascular smooth muscle to contract it to produce vasoconstriction, and therefore it rise the blood pressure. Now we have to go through the physiological role of the angiotensin, that we already discussed about its action on the blood vessel, particularly through the vascular smooth muscle, that is going to produce the vasoconstriction, and which is about 40 times more than the noradrenaline, which is going to also raise the blood pressure. So angiotensin is more potent than the noradrenaline to produce vasoconstriction, which is about 40 times more than the noradrenaline. About this action on the heart, I mean the action of angiotensin 2 is positive chronotropic and positive inotropic. So that means ki positive inotropic means ki it increases both muscular contraction, means positive chronotropic, as well as it also increases the heart rate. It increases the heart rate as well as the muscular contraction. It also going to when angiotensin is going to act on the heart or other cell, this is going to produce the hypertrophy. So this is very, very important. When this angiotensin 2 is going to act on the adrenal cortex present on the kidney, this is going to, as we already mentioned, this is going to help to secrete the hormone aldosterone by the adrenal cortex, particularly the zona glomerulosa of adrenal cortex. So when this is going to act on, angiotensin is going to act on the kidney, so this angiotensin is going to increase the absorption of sodium chloride, simultaneously water will come. So this is called the its direct action, but indirect action of the angiotensin is through release of the aldosterone and release of the ADH. So aldosterone is released by adrenal cortex, whereas the ADH is released by the posterior pituitary. Now it is also going to act on sympathetic nervous system, angiotensin 2. Now we have to go through its therapeutic utility. So this is very, very important and interesting. When the drugs that are going to go through this pathway, these drugs are going to use for the therapy of blood pressure. So if you are going to inhibit the synthesis of enzyme renin, That means you are inhibiting the synthesis of angiotensin 2. Therefore, you are inhibiting the blood pressure. So, renin enzyme inhibitor or DRI, direct renin enzyme inhibitor, are used for the therapy of blood pressure. No renin, then no angiotensin, no blood pressure. But this is less usable. This group is less usable as a antihypertensive drug. Under this, the drugs that are used under renin inhibitor are orally active, that is coming under the first generation drug, and usually the suffix you will find chiren. So drug are N-alkyren, then genikyren, then remikyren. So N-alkyren, if you are going to put one more A after L and put pril, then this become ACE inhibitor. Here, when you are going to spell RAMI and put the suffix pril, this become remipril, so that become ACE inhibitor. And here, when you are going to add one more A, N-ela, N-ela, and then you in place of chirin, you put the pril, then become N-elapril, that is ACE inhibitor. So you have to get it in mind this about the spelling. So chirins are N-L-chirin, genichirin, remichirin. This is the first generation renin inhibitor and orally acting one. Another is the second generation and renin inhibitor, and the example is L-chirin. Again, the suffix is chirin. Now we have to go through the another enzyme inhibitor that we call angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, and we are calling it ACE inhibitor. So if there is no ACE, so there is no angiotensin 2, because angiotensin converting enzyme is converting the angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. So no angiotensin 2 when we are going to inhibit this enzyme, so there is no blood pressure. So that is why the drug is going to use as a antihypertensive drug. So ACE inhibitor or angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor are too much in use as a antihypertensive drug, and their suffix is usually pril, P-R-I-L, like captopril, like enalapril. So see here, that is why I have told you you have to be cautious about the spelling. Lisinopril, quinapril, see here remipril, there R-E-M-I, chirin. So this is trendopril, fosinopril. So this is about this drug we already discussed. Now we have to go through the angiotensin 1 receptor antagonist. So as you know, angiotensin 2 is going to act on the receptor and therefore producing the rising of the blood pressure. So the drug that occupy the place of the receptor, angiotensin 1 receptor, is called angiotensin 2 receptor antagonist. Wow, this angiotensin 2 that I have mentioned is going to occupy the place of the, this is the cell and this is your receptor. So the name of receptor is A2 AT1 receptor. So this receptor is going to occupy by the sartan. So this position is occupied by the sartan. Therefore, angiotensin 2 will not get the place to attach to produce physiological function. Therefore, it is you called the angiotensin 2 receptor antagonist and used as a antihypertensive drug. Also aldosterone that I have told you, that is going to increase the sodium absorption. So no sodium absorption in the blood, no blood pressure. And for that we are going to use the drug is called aldosterone antagonist, that antagonizes the this hormone. So no function of hormone, no sodium absorption, no blood pressure. The example of antagonist is a spironolactone. ADH inhibitor that will inhibit the function of the ADH is also used as an antihypertensive drug that called Vaptans. So this is all about the antihypertensive drug. So this is all about today class. So this is